So just like in yesterday's lesson, we can use factoring to solve quadratic equations. Obviously, the first thing that has to be done is we need to put it in standard form. So let's subtract 12x from both sides, and let's subtract 10 from both sides. That'll give us 0 on the right side. See, 10x and negative 12x makes negative 4x. Negative 11 and negative 10 makes negative 21. If I could be completely honest with you, factoring is not going to be the easiest method to solve this. That's even if it's factorable at all. But the quadratic formula will always work. You can always go back to the quadratic formula as a method to solve quadratic equations. But let's try this by factoring, and we'll soon see why maybe it's not the easiest route. You'll be longing for the quadratic formula. So we're looking for values of d and e that come out to 8 times negative 21, which is negative 168. That's a pretty big number. This is going to be hard. D plus e is negative 2. That's our b value right there. Okay. So I'm looking for a positive and a negative factor of negative 168 that add up to negative 2. They're obviously very close together. I'm just going to list off factors of 168. How about 1 and 168 obviously isn't it? 2 and 84, those are way too far apart. It's divisible by 3. 3 and 56 way too far apart. It's divisible by 4 and 42, but they need to be 2 apart. 6 and 28, we're getting closer, but those are still 22 away. 7 and 24, 17 away from each other. 8 and 21, those are 13 away from each other. It's divisible by 12. There we go, 12 times 14. So negative 14 and positive 12, because the bigger one needs to be negative so they can add up to a negative number. Here's our formula, ax squared plus dx plus ex plus c. We're solving an equation, so I'm going to put equals 0 here also. A is 8, d is negative 14, e is 12, c is negative 21. We can take a 2x out of this, 4x minus 7. Take a 3 out of this, x minus 7, 4x minus 7. Then we can write this in factored form, 4x minus 7 and 2x plus 3. And then we can solve it using the zero product property. So x has got to be 7/4 or negative 3/2. Those are the two solutions to this big ugly equation up here. Again, I'm going to be quite honest with you. I'd probably put it in standard form just like we did and then use the quadratic formula. You'll get the same answers. Okay, a real world situation. You jump off a high dive platform at City Pool, which is 12 feet above the water, with an initial velocity of 4 feet per second. How long will it take you to enter the water? So we've got the vertical motion model that'll help us with this, negative 16t squared plus vt plus s. Our final height, we want to hit the pool, so it's 0. Our initial velocity is 4, and our starting height is 12. That's the height of the diving board. All right, now what I've done here in this step is I'm going to divide both sides of this equation by negative 4. And I'm allowed to do that as long as I do the same thing to both sides of the equation. The equation is equivalent. So negative 16 divided by negative 4 is 4. 4 divided by negative 4 is negative 1. And 12 divided by negative 4 is negative 3. Now I'm going to try and factor this. And not all equations are factorable, but let's try it. D times e equals negative 12. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And our b value is negative 1. So factors of negative 12 that add up to negative 1, that's not that bad. Negative 4 and 3. Again, negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. Here's our fancy-dancy formula. There's our a value, 4. Our d value is negative 4. Our e value is 3. And our c value is right here, negative 3. We can take a 4 out of this, 4t actually. Take a 3 out of this. So in factored form, we get t minus 1 and 4t plus 3. Solutions to this equation are 1 and negative 3/4. But remember, we're given an answer in time here, so does negative 3/4 of a second really make any sense? No. Our answer here is it'll take you 1 second to hit the pool. Ignore the negative answer. Okay, so why don't you guys try this one, put it in standard form first, and then try and solve it by factoring. Okay, here's my solution. I'm going to start off by adding 4x and adding 3 to both sides to get this into standard form. 12x squared minus 4x minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to look for factors of negative 12. 12 times negative 1 that add up to negative 4. That's our b value. So pretty quick on this one. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. Negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. Here's that formula. It's an equation, so I'm going to set it equal to 0. 12 is our a value. Negative 6 is our d value. 2 is our e value. Negative 1 is our c value. Take a 6x out of this, and can't take anything out of this. So our factored form would be 2x minus 1, and this is 6x plus 1 here, guys. Solutions, positive 1/2, negative 1/6. I have no idea why I crossed off this negative 1/6. We are not solving a real-world equation, so actually both of these are fine answers. Let's just make that correction right there. 1/2 and negative 1/6 will both work. Sorry about that. All right, so last one. Why don't you guys try this one? I'll do it on my own as well, and you can compare your answer to mine. Start off with the vertical motion model. We want to hit the pool, so it's 0. The initial velocity is 4, just like last time, and the platform is only 2 feet above the water this time. At this point, this just makes my life a little easier. If I divide both sides by negative 2, everything here is divisible by negative 2. Negative 16 divided by negative 2 is 8. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. And 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. Just makes my a and c values a little bit smaller and easier to work with. I'm going to try and solve this by factoring. You can use the quadratic formula. There's no difference. Could graph it too. Look for its x-intercept. All right, so I've identified that a times c is negative 8, b is negative 2, negative 4 times 2 will give me negative 8, and negative 4 plus 2 will give me negative 2. Over here I'm plugging in my values. 8 for a, negative 4 for d, 2 for e, negative 1 for c. Factoring out the greatest common factor of these two terms, which is 4t. Nothing can be factored out here. Writing this in factored form and solving the equation. Now we have to ignore the negative answer. Half a second. All right, that's a lot to handle. We'll come in, we'll practice it tomorrow, we'll get it down. But if you took good notes today, that'll definitely benefit you. Have a great night.